Good morning, everybody, and happy July 4th to you. Today, we are pre recorded. We are not live. This is going to be a pre recorded show. Hopefully, you guys are all out doing fun festival things and enjoying your holiday. And I'm sitting here doing a interview so that you guys can enjoy that as well. We have a amazing guest today for the show, and it's a very long bio here to get you through this. And this guy's just sounds absolutely amazing with all the things that he's done here. And let's get into that. All right, guys. Today, my guest is Dr. C. Michael Scroggins. He has over 40 years in the R&D, electrical and project management engineering field. He has worked in R&D for companies such as British Petroleum, Union Carbide, and as a private consultant for emerging technologies and new prototype equipment design. For Baptist Memorial Hospital System as the Biomed Director and System IT Installation Manager, General Services Administration as a Project Director for the Presidential Libraries, Power Generation Design, and oversaw the program for monitoring and lowering usage in all federal buildings in the United States. He is currently the research scientist, senior electrical engineer for deep water power distribution systems for BP. Recently, he has worked as a senior engineer in the automotive and in R&D for building materials production company. Currently, he's the Chief Technology Officer for CMS Engineering Technologies LLC, a female veteran-owned small business consulting technologies company. He is involved in cutting-edge research and development, working with the separation of subatomic molecular particles to control molecular combinations in their simplest form. Most recently, working with development of energy capturing CNT or carbon nanotube enhanced paint and control system to augment hybrid and electrical automobile battery power generation, and new motor technologies that increase torque and lower operating costs by 30%. In addition to all the above technologies, he has also developed systems to augment the growth and longevity of plants and the microbial counts in soil. There we go. Counts in soil. Over the past 25 years, Dr. Scroggins has developed patents for monitoring molecular combinations within the human body to detect early signs of anomalies at an early stage within the human body. This, coupled with the development and interpretation of cellular reactions to specific forms of acceleration, has allowed a paradigm shift in the recognition of how the human body reacts to daily stimuli. He holds patents on several areas, including medical diagnostic tools based on non-destructive determination of material composition of internal organs and tissues, integral enhancements of organic and inorganic matters using specific tonal and vibrational levels, orbital motor and generator, just to mention a few. The research in these areas has opened pathways to understanding how the natural events in molecular combinations affect every aspect within the human body and the world around us. Dr. Scroggins has partnered in research of adult stem cell activation process to allow the use of individual self-produced stem cells to combat and break down the individual cellular structure. It just keeps going and going and going. This guy is amazing, and we are going to bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Michael Scroggins. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Barnaby?
Hopefully, I did not slaughter that too bad for you, man. There's a lot of big words, and I'm getting better at it. So, as I said, you are amazing. The things that you have done, working for everything from technology to cellular to vibrational. There's so much in there.
Well, now I retired from BP in 2015. I'm a contract engineer. I they send me out for special projects and things like that. So right now I'm working at Carrier, working on their new cooling system, at the new 454B Freon system. So, I just retire until they call me back.
Just another day in the life, huh?
It's just about.
Wow. So, um, how did you get into all of that stuff? I mean, you've gone from technology to science to, I mean, obviously it's all linked, but technology to vibrational science to molecular science. How did that lead to each other?
Well, it's I wrote a book, the God algorithm.
Yes.
And the God algorithm kind of tracks my life from a young child up through basically now. And my great grandmother was a Sioux medicine woman. So she didn't train any of her children or her grandchildren. And she picked me. And at about 2 years old, she started teaching me. And so for the first 5 years of my life until she passed away, she showed me anything that had to do with Native American, the healing arts and things like that. So I became very interested in everything that was going on and just kind of kept it in the background because people didn't really want to hear about that. I had one uncle that he's in his 80s now, and he was always talking to my dad and the other brother-in-laws and stuff on mom's side of the family. He would try and talk to him about magnetic flux and how magnetic flows occur, and he couldn't get a conversation. Well, he's read the book tons of times, and it makes sense to him because if you think about it, we're made up of 4 basic particles: protons, neutrons, electrons, and nucleus. Each one of these in combination has a magnetic field, and it encodes. If it didn't encode, you wouldn't have a memory. So the same thing that creates DVDs or captures this information is what we're made of. Everything around us is made up of these 4 particles. So they have to align, and they have to become part of everything that we are and what we do. We think we're better than anything else, but we're the same thing as the rocks, the trees, the dirt, the birds, the plants, everything else. We're no better off. And sometimes I think we're a little slower than they are because they actually sense things that we don't sense, like paranormal applications.
Mm-hmm.
So it all started making sense. And by the time Carla and I had gotten, I don't want to go through a huge long story on it, but by the time Carla and I had gotten married, we've been married, it'll be 29 years this June 10th. And she was in the Navy. She was a young lieutenant in the Navy. And we got married. And as soon as we got back from honeymoon, we were supposed to be here in Memphis for another 3 years. We got back, and it's like, oh, by the way, you're going to be transferred to Maine. So we headed to Maine. Nothing about Maine was very much fun. There was snow on the ground when I got there. I got there on October 10th, 1995, and drove through snow from basically in and out of Pennsylvania. But when I got to Maine on November 10th, there was snow on the ground. And this was not a very good experience for somebody that grew up. We got maybe 10 inches of snow once a year. And so I didn't like Maine. But in Maine, I got involved in martial arts. Carla didn't want to do karate. I wanted her to learn something. I said, well, let's do Tai Chi. And I got involved with some of the best Tai Chi masters that there are, and learned so much. And then as they were teaching, he would bring in different guests to teach us and stuff. He brought in one of the Dalai Lama's doctors. He and I were talking, and he said, you understand this, don't you? And I said, well, my great grandmother showed me this. And I said, this is the same. He said, energy works the same no matter where you're at. East, west, it doesn't matter. The Native Americans and the Eastern philosophies were almost alike. And I told him, I said, well, this is it. And he said, well, we do this. I said, yes. I said, those are props. You smudge and all this stuff. It has less to do with what you're using and more to do with the hand movements. But if you do the hand movements and somebody gets better, then they come back to you. If they see you use these props, then they go buy them and they take care of themselves. So you're basically teaching them how to use these props to do these hand movements and things, just like in Tai Chi and all these other things. After we had met with the Dalai Lama's doctor, I told John Fritz, said, I can build a device that will do the same thing that we're trying to do with moving energy. And he said, okay, well, next month when I come back. Now, he lived in Florida, so he came to Maine and taught us there. Well, he taught us in Boston, but came there and taught us. And he only had spent 1 month there, or 1 weekend a month. I went home, picked up the stuff. I think I got it on like Monday afternoon after we got back, built these 3 devices. By Tuesday afternoon, I was testing them out. And by the next month, we were ready to use them. On the way up there, I had one of the devices that I was going to give to John. And one of my best friends was riding with me. And he said, what does this do? And I said, well, you hook it up to yourself. And I said, it works so quickly, your brain can't catch the sequences. It's alternating, rhythms and things. So it allows your body to relax, and it goes to the point in your area in your body that has the most difficulty. And that's what it works on. And then when you trigger that, then that triggers stem cells to reproduce and go to specific areas. Well, he said, can I try it? And I said, sure. So I had made it with a 12-volt plug-in. So I plugged it in the car. And when we started, it went on all your fingers and all your toes. It was like pulse ox cables. Being in the hospital thing and being a biomed, I understood how these work. So I plugged it in and I turned it on. And he said, well, I feel it. And I said, okay. He said, I don't know what it's done. I said, it's kind of like your body pops. In other words, you get used to the signals going through your body, and your body says, bang, you relax. You become, I said, when you relax and it just becomes like really calm and everything, I said, you're done. Well, about 30 minutes into this, he said, he started coughing. He said, I can breathe. And it's like, okay, so you can breathe. He said, no. He said, when I was a kid, I had double pneumonia. And he said, my right lung doesn't work at all now, or didn't. He said, when I would breathe, it would hurt. He said, I can breathe. And I said, well, that's great. Now I didn't realize it was that bad, but it worked for him. So we went and worked with John and did this, and I hooked him up and everything. And when we got done, we did our martial arts training first, and then they would bring the Tai Chi people in, and we'd all do our Tai Chi classes and stuff, and then spend the night and then go back home. Well, that evening when we got through, John looked at me and he said, I want you to build me one of these. I said, well, that's yours. And he said, what? I said, I built 3 of these. And Carla said, yeah, he had them done by Tuesday, and we were playing with them by Wednesday, after the meeting. And he said, where are the prints on this? Can I see them? And I said, what do you mean prints? And he said, prints, how did you draw it? And I said, I just see everything in my head, put it together and see how it works. And if that doesn't work, I pull it apart and see how it flows. And so that's how I build it. And he said, that's really unusual. And I said, no, everybody can do it. Now, at this time, I'm about right at 40 years old, I guess. And so it's right at 40. And I said, yeah, everybody does this. He said, no, they don't. And I looked at Carla and she said, no, that's not how it works. Well, that explained why everybody from grade school up through college got upset with me, because it's like, well, just show your work. Why? It's just right here. So I said, well, that explains a lot. And he said, what do you mean? I said, it explains why people would get angry at me, because it's just like, well, here's the answer. You can see this too. But I didn't tell anybody what I saw, because I thought everybody saw it. And this one time when I mentioned it, it's like, oh, okay. Well, light came on. It's like, oh, okay. So I realized then that it was not normal. Well, not everybody does that, can see it, put it together, pull it apart, and make it work in their head, and then just put it together and it works. And from that point on, the martial arts, the healing arts, and everything that my great grandmother told me. She knew she was about to pass away, and at 5 years old, she said, "Do not use what I taught you on anybody. Keep it to yourself." Well, when she died, I lost all connection with Native Americans and things like that. So I had no one or nothing to go with on the things that she told me, and I understood it, but I didn't understand how all these worked. Because when I would see what I was seeing now that as being older, I was seeing Native Americans coming to teach me. Well, as a kid, it scared the crap out of me. It's like, this is not fun. So I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Well, it took years to realize that my connection with her was greater than that. It was nature that was intervening and trying to teach me. So, when I'd go to sleep, it's like all these things would just fill my head. And it's like, oh, no, light needs to be on. This needs to go away. So it took years and years to recognize that what I was seeing and feeling was something that my great grandmother had taught me to understand. And she recognized that I could see things that other people didn't, but protecting me, she was telling me, don't do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she thought I understood. I'm sure she thought I understood when she's saying this, but you're a kid, 5 years old, and like, yeah, this doesn't quite. I didn't have the knowledge to understand everything that was going on. So that kind of built the background on where we were going. And just as an aside, Carla and I, right after we'd gotten married, we were sitting at the dinner table, and this was in 95, the 95 time frame. Ghost hunting was starting to become this everyday people can do it, And I looked at her and I said, I don't know if I believe in ghosts or anything. I said, but the equipment that they use and stuff, I said, I could enhance that and go out there and be a skeptic and say, okay, we're going to use this and try it. And that was all we said about it. Well, in 1999, we moved from Maine, thank goodness, to D.C., and I went to work for the federal government. And I met a buddy there, and by the middle of 2000, we decided we were going to start ghost hunting. So we started going to all these different places, getting things. And me being scientific, it's like, okay, well, all right, this doesn't make sense. I know you've got pictures of orbs and things, which is a lot of times it's dust or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see something that has opened a vortex, if you look through the center of the hole and everything gets bright and it looks like it's just vivid, that's a vortex opening. And we got several of those things when we were doing this. And I went home one night after we like I said, we'd go to Ball Cemetery, we'd go to Bull Run, go to Gettysburg, all these different places, and got to go into where Jenny Lynn, or is that the little girl that got killed? Jenny Lynn, I think's her name. Mm-hmm. We got full access to her house at night. So we got to do some really cool stuff. And I told Carla one night, I said, "Do you realize that back in '95, when we were sitting at this table, and I said, I'd like to do this for ghost hunting and stuff," she said, "Yes, we're doing it now." So a lot of things in my life we've talked about or done, and then all of a sudden it just kind of manifests itself. And that was when I recognized that we could do different things. We were doing things like with tuning forks, and I had it set so that it would hit different tuning forks, and you'd get different activities and things like this. And we had, now we didn't have thermal, but we had the infrared, and we get some really cool stuff. Some things could be explained, some things couldn't. A lot of EVP things. Ball Cemetery, there was nobody around. And it's right on the edge of the battlefield there. And we got somebody yelling on the EVP, "Hold the horses, hold the horses, hold the horses." So it was kind of like, oh, okay. So And now this was in the daytime, not at night. Just, we were just filming around there. We got all kinds of unusual things. The wind was blowing that day. There wasn't any fog. Sun was shining and things, but the entire cemetery, when we filmed it, was covered in fog, in the videos. And we played it back and we're looking at this, and I said, well, so I walked through it, and you could see that on the other side, it's between us. So there was something there. Don't know what it was, but there again, it was just something that we were really new at it, and it was just kind of a fun hobby, so it was something to do. And after that, we haven't been anywhere that we found anybody that we could ghost hunt with, so here in Memphis, I know there probably are people, but we don't know anybody, but that would be the kind of cool things. And now, did you want to ask anything or to go into anything? Since I rambled on,
there's so many things. Well, let's start with the tuning forks and stuff. Let's start with the frequencies in that. When you're doing that, what is your goal? What is your intent with the tuning forks? What did you hope to accomplish, and what was the process of that?
Well, it was the precursor of like these devices and everything. Your body vibrates at a specific level. Yours is a specific level that nobody else has, and it vibrates and it's in tune with a specific area. You'll have a band, an upper and lower control limit, and in the center part where the vibrations sway, depending on your mood and everything, you can compress it, more energy. That means you're tense and everything, but it's relaxed and it's wide open, so it just ebbs and flows. If you measure your, and this is over time, your frequencies, the frequencies your body gives off at a period of rest, it's a long waveform, like a theta wave. When you get tense or stressed, compresses it. That compression is the same thing as a fight or flight, and it activates the muscles in your body. Now, you don't recognize it, but when you're stressed, your body is not as fluid. When you get stressed, somebody said, "Oh, but look at all this energy. You've burned up the energy before you've used it." Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a football player. If he goes out there and he's just angry at the world, man, I'm tensed up and I'm going through the line, he'll never make a play, because you have to focus on your target, relax, and then explode to get to it, not all before, because if so, you've wasted so much energy that it's just ridiculous. That goes back to the same thing with the tuning forks. Was something to give a signal or a sound that we knew, that living signal that people and react to. We would have certain ones, and you tap certain ones, and then as they start to do their crossover, you start getting more activity. So that was where, like, I advanced this device and everything like that, so that it has lasers and all this stuff in it. You don't hear anything, but when you turn it on, you feel it. So it's reacting to you and everything around. Energy. Let's see, how would you put it? Any frequency is an energy source. So an energy source is something that would draw an entity. And I'm going to throw this out there. I think that the spectral energy is like photons, and it finds electrons, protons, neutrons, or nucleus, so that it can intertwine with it and expel its energy to use that as a vibrational or a voice to speak of. Because if I have a molecule, the molecule itself, the particle, is the same as the Earth. It has magnetic fields. It has above, so below, the greater, the smaller. There's a whole nother world below particles that we don't even talk about. But particles, every time that lightning strikes and stuff, it splits atoms. It will split particles. So you have shards or asteroid fields of small particles that go on. They don't even teach us the minute parts in school, because it's just too hard. Well, actually, no, because if I'm working with 4 particles, it's pretty easy. Each one has a size, each one has an energy output, and each one has a dimension, and it can get only so close to anything else. So the unified theory says, well, nothing is moving until you look at it. Well, that's not really true. But if I have a vibration on this side and a vibration on this side, then in between, it's kind of like a Newton's cradle. I hit one ball here and the one ball goes there. I hit two. These look like they're stationary. They're not. They're just transferring energy. As the energy spreads, then it becomes larger. It starts to intertwine. It starts to interact. If you look at it in simplistic models, that's what is actually happening all around us at all times. Anything I interact with is within me and around me. And I will have created patterns from the day that I was conceived until now. And those patterns interact with everything that I've interacted with. Universally, it does that. Well, you're traveling at 19.2 miles per second. So every second we've sat here, we've got 19.2 seconds, 19.2 miles. We don't take in consideration that we're traveling through the universe. I worked it out. It's somewhere around like 600 trillion miles for me being 67. So, so I've traveled that far. On our solar system travels at 450,000 miles per hour. Which is pretty doggone fast. I mean, Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we don't take in consideration that we're constantly moving, and I've broken down all the light. We intersect and see bits and pieces of light strains within our visionary, our focal point of somewhere. If you're really good, 60 frames a minute, but most of the time it's about 20 because your brain's doing all kinds of other stuff. Dragonflies are about 240 feet per second, and or frames per second, and we don't even see what a dragonfly sees. So yeah, I mean, you've ever tried to catch a dragonfly? It's like a pretty good sized thing. It's like reaching, it's gone. Well, it's gone because it saw where you were going before you did it. As soon as you start to move, it senses that energy. We have limited ourselves in what we do because we think it's in this one little box, and maybe we're in the little box, but the rest of everything around us isn't there. There's no limitations around it. So I think that when you're seeing energy drains and everything, you have the energy that was somebody that's encoded within particles that it can pick up. It can share these things, but it takes energy to produce energy. And that's when we were talking about the basically taking, I drew it up and just, sent it to Rez and just get one of the pop-up tailgating tents, take that frame and string it all together, and you create things that have no more than 6 to 8 inches apart as it goes all the way around. When something goes in it, you could see where it comes from, either top, bottom, left, right, up, or down. And then as it gets in the center, you'd be able to say dimensionally it's this. It's something more than we've got, because in our minds, we think it should be something like us. Does that make sense? It should look like us. If I didn't have to look like me and I could be anywhere I wanted to and instantaneously, I think I'd give that up in a second just to become fluid like the universe. I mean, I know, have you guys used dogs at all, or, when you've gone out on our cats have, I throw energy. Have you ever done like a energy ball between your hands? You can feel it when you, okay. Well, when you do that, you can push it and it goes about 3.6 meters per second and it'll dissipate. But cats and stuff, our cats see them and it's like, oh, okay, I got to chase this. And then it disappears and they look back at you like, you knew I wasn't going to catch that, right? But we've accepted the limitations we put on ourselves and accepted that everything that's around us should work in our limited knowledge. And we don't do that. We know it's talked about the microbial growth in plants. We had 9-foot tall tomato plants. And they grew for 3 years. We just got tired of messing with them. And what I did is I took something similar to this device and I had it come on every 4 hours. Come on for 30 minutes every 4 hours. That's the plant cycle. A plant cycles up and on, and then it pushes out waste, pulls in microbes from the soil. I had friends that say, "Oh, I'll take these tomatoes, plant seeds." Seeds aren't doing it. I was programming the plant to come on and go off at certain times. So if you did this same process when you planted a field and you turned the plants on with a signal to come on, run 30 minutes, pump their waste in the soil so the microbes can rebuild, you'd have crops that were just unbelievable. I mean, I like to test something, then I kind of get tired and just like, okay, I'm done with that. But we had it tied to the top of our deck, and I couldn't reach the top of the plants. They were that big. The trees around our house in Texas, live oaks don't grow fast, but we had 6-inch diameter live oaks, and we were there for 12 years. Everybody else's were the biggest ones were about 4 inches, but our yard looked like, not 35-foot tall trees in the yard, and everybody else's looked like they'd been stunted. But it's just taking what you know and then applying those sequences to get where you're going to go. We remember what you can't do, so we don't go any beyond that point. I know that somebody said, "Well, you can't do that." I'm stubborn. Yeah, you can do things. So I find ways to go beyond the limits that people think that they've set for me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You've brought up the box, the device behind you several times now. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
What does it do? What is it?
I'll show you. I'm sure it's all on. It's all on. It has these things have evolved. This inside it's painted with nanotube paint, and then it has beat copper that I've put in, and I created some. I don't know if you could see it or not. It's kind of unwieldy, but I can show you something. Think of something that makes you really angry. You got it?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Now, try and hold that thought. It's gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a point on here. What I've done is I've increased the output at a high frequency, and negativity and high frequency. You're at a higher frequency when you're happy and calm. Negativity pushes down. I came up with this when I built one of these devices for one of the Catholic exorcists. He was on the phone, and I was listening to him talking to somebody, and you could hear all this stuff going on in this guy's apartment. And he didn't know we were on a Zoom call. And I told him, I said, well, let me try this. And so I had come up with this idea because negativity has to build up in a person in, I don't know, demonic things. I know that there's stuff that goes on, whatever that is. But it has to build up to an energy level to make the person angry so that it can work with that negativity. I turned on the device and I turned up this emotion valve, basically. Everything went quiet. This he was in an oppression. This, whatever it was doing stuff in his apartment and stuff, trying to get to him. Father Michael said that he said he normally would have to go over there, and it just got quiet. And the guy said, "It's gone." He said, "I don't feel it or anything anymore." He said, "Do you need me to come over tonight?" He said, "No." And so when we got off, he said, "I want one of those." And I said, "Okay, the deal is, if I ever get to go to the Vatican, I want to be able to go see the archives. I can't promise you that." And I said, "I'm not going to get you a device then." So I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it was but it was kind of interesting working with him. And so this particular thing allowed that comfort level. It was just something that I was trying to figure out what an individual does. And, he told me different things that, well, I come in and they're usually cordial, and then they get uncomfortable when I start talking to them. And then it gets worse and worse, and it builds up. And he said that by the time that it's built up, he said the anger is so great that there's times that, he was a pretty good sized guy. He said there's times that they can just, basically throw you across the room. Like, okay. I said, so it has to do with anger. And he said, yes. That's okay. So I came up with this and it works. So it's kind of like, okay, let's work with this. I like people to come up with, well, we can't do this. Well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to do a specific thing. Okay, then let's look at it. Let's look at what you're doing and what your limitations are. Where are you limited? What have you tried? And then we build on that and work it backwards. The human body can be healed internally. If you would just reprogram the MRI, you could reprogram it to take your vitals when you walk into a doctor's office. Then you take your meds, walk back through it again, go sit down, and by the time the office is done, she could look at it, or he could look at it and say, "You're taking this med. It only needs this much. This one's a little low. We limit the things that it's doing. I mean, it's kind of like people say AI. Well, AI is a creation. Well, we create computers to think like we do, to have memory lapses and be tied up in all kinds of BS that's going through the system. 80% of the computer is running background checks, and 20% of it's doing the work. Gee, we patterned it just like us. That's really not a good pattern. And then they're saying, well, AI, well, you're doing the same thing with AI. You're teaching it to move and evaluate in our thought process. You need to get outside that process and allow things to occur in a natural format. But we're afraid of the very things that we already are, because there's nothing out there that's created that's not made of the same thing that you are. There's some of the same particles that make up everything out there is in you. So why should you fear anything that's out around us? It's still the same thing. And I'd like to have known this when I was a kid, because it would have made so much sense.
Oh man, yeah, you make great points, man. I'm trying to wrap my head around some of the stuff here. Your device that you got running there in the background. Mm-hmm. So does that run on audio frequency then?
It you can hook this thing up. I've got jacks and stuff on it. I'll see if I won't tip it over. Yeah, I've got enough. I've got enough cable. It started out having audio transducers and frequencies, and then I found that over time anything that I put in it, not only was an audio, but it was a resonating frequency. Mm-hmm. So this is sending energy. If I leave it on too long, it'll cut our feed off, because it's feeding the back. See, it looks kind of like this inside. I don't know how well you can see it.
A little bit, yep.
You see the lasers and all this junk in the bottom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it has magnetic opposing and attracting fields in it. And it just made sense to me when I was building these things. It's like, but wait a minute, what works within our body? What tells our body to operate the way it does? And this is kind of where I came. It's evolved over the years, but now you can feel it. It's like it would be like having a small TENS unit on that gives you like these little tingles the entire time. It starts at your hand, goes to the extremities and in, and then back out. It just makes these loops within it. But it's also feeding everything around you, because all you're doing is enhancing everything around you to work at the same process. So if you've got a bad place that you want to go to, and we've done this, take it with this ghost hunting and turn it on, and now it may ruin the ghost hunt, but the building does not feel this ominous presence and things and stuff. But
yeah, because I'm obviously not as in depth and familiar with this stuff as you are, but like, when we talk about like your energy levels, your higher vibrational levels are the happy and everything, and your lower vibration is your angers and that. So I'm envisioning this thing kind of working to the point where it raises the vibrational energy of an area. Is that kind of what we're getting at here?
It does, but it also fills the gaps.
Okay.
You can be out of balance in your body, and it would be like if you understood a C chord, and that's all you had, and it's just this C chord. Okay. Well, anytime it passes center is when you're activated. That's your intersect point. Well, if you learn all the chords, now you have intersects, and depending on where you strum that chord, you have all these intersects that build up, and it looks like a toroidal effect, and it fills in the inside. It's kind of like you say 120, 120 volts, 120 below, 120 above, center line. When I turn that on, I'm not taking a full 120 volts out. I'm taking enough to energize what needs to be energized around me. And then it flows in and fills up those gaps again. It's sort of like this, like when you turn the lights on and stuff, so you'll see them dim and then come right back up. That's how we work. We work under the same pattern. We don't work real well under a 60 hertz like the lights here. We learn to tune it out. But if the power went off, how quiet it gets, and just everything, you just feel like you immediately drop. We learn to tune this out, but it's still there, and it's an interference. That's the same thing. We need to have these intersects. The intersects are the points that you can monitor and read things. At 400 trillion frames per second, you may never see what's occurring, but you can get a glimpse at those intersect points, just real quick, and then it's gone. But it's enough to trigger your memory, trigger your body. Now, we're traveling at 19.2 miles per second, and it's only 767 or 68 miles per hour for the speed of sound, per minute for the speed of sound. So we're traveling faster than sound. So I think what happens when we're trying to record these EVPs and things is we get bits and pieces. It's all there, but it doesn't record. We need to slow it down. We think and hear faster than people can talk. Have you heard that, right? You understand? In that manner, we're moving faster than that sound can get back to us. Because if it's a amorphous energy, it's not in the same plane. It's not the same realm that we're in. Doesn't have the same echo that we do. Mm-hmm. So we're moving faster than it. So I think that we're blinded because we can't see what's happening, and we're deaf because we can't hear, because we're stuck in this one little zone. I mean, it's kind of like someone saying, if I go into a cave and I turn out the lights and it's completely dark, what's there? Everything that was there in the light is still there. We're looking at just this very narrow pattern that we see in. So you turn out the lights, it's like, okay, well, I've lost all that. No, everything that was there before the lights went out is still there. If you brought it up with ultraviolet lights, or not ultraviolet. Yeah, I guess that's right, ultraviolet. You don't see it, but I mean, I could see you in the frame of a camera or something if I'm filming it, but everything around you is still dark. So isn't the same thing still there? We've been told that if we can't see it, can't hear it, can't feel it, can't taste it, it's not there. And I think that's one of the things that everybody has become, shell-shocked or accepted. There's things that are there. Have you ever watched Skinwalker Ranch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they took a video and they got just a small clip of about 2 frames of something metallic that landed in the field or appeared in the field. And they said, oh, we just can't figure it out. Well, I can tell you why, because they're not filming at a fast enough speed. If it had been a fast speed, they would have got the entire thing. And if you look at some of the things that they're monitoring, it goes from here to here, so there's a gap between it. So all these frames are missing. These guys are really smart, but, do the math and use the equations to your benefit. I mean, I'm sure that they can afford to get, in Hollywood, they have up to 70 trillion frames per second. Now, that's not the 700 trillion, but it's 70 trillion frames per second. If they got something like that to record what was going on, then they could probably see a lot more than what they think, than what's really going on.
Well, they've used some of the high speed cameras and stuff to capture it. That's when they got that thing over the triangle and that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the exact thing that you're talking about, the orb in the field, that was on just a regular trail camera. So the amount of
that's very slow
that has is very limited. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can even it's kind of like taking your cameras on your house. If I just want to follow a path, I turn off the pixels around it so that I can follow a path and don't worry about the frames outside it. I mean, you can limit those things. That's the only way that that trail cam is really, it just wants to take a picture. It doesn't matter, doesn't matter if it's fast or slow. A lot of times it takes the picture at the head and you see the butt go by. That's, so it's kind of a misnomer at that point, but use the technology that we got. I mean, my gosh, there's a whole world of things to play with out there. Don't limit yourself because, well, we've never done this before, or we've always done this. It's just as bad. But I think that we have to get out of the mindset of an entity being just like you or me, because that's what we expect to see, and that's not what this whole thing for is, to learn from this experience.
Well, let me ask you this. With all this stuff that you've worked on and looked into, what do you think that, when we go into a location, and let's say your grandma passed away and you're trying to talk to your grandma at this house, how do you believe that these things manifest? Because you say that they're not a person form like we're envisioning. So do you think that it just manifests as just energy, or is it like a cloud of that person, or what do you think is actually the form?
Well, I think it's more like a telegraph type thing, and it's transmitted from somewhere to where you're at. I've worked with a a lot of people in the healing fields and all this stuff, and they talk about my spirit guide, and he or she is this, and it's like, okay, but you waste so much time building this body for something that can just talk to you without doing that.
Mm.
Um, it'd be kind of like, well, I'm going to imagine God sitting here talking to me. Well, he just talked to people in the Bible, and he didn't appear in a form, you know,
Mhm.
just a burning bush or whatever. But it's not. No, it was that I think the connection is more what you allow to yourself to understand. I don't. Let's see. You know how hard it is to build a form of something or someone in your head from something you remember in the past or whatever, and you're having to loop back in this, and so you're wasting that 80% of your brain power trying to
Mhm.
do all this stuff when you can be focused on what's happening in the moment, you know. And I can guarantee you, when you hear something that is not you, or uh, a voice or whatever, it doesn't have to be audible to everybody else. But when you hear it, you know that didn't come from you.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, when you were doing the, you know, the headphone
Yes.
earmuffs,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. What did you were talking about what you heard or flashes of what you saw.
Mhm.
So if we can trust that, why can't you just trust it all the time? Does it make sense?
Mhm.
So, I mean, what you've done is you say, I'm going to limit my abilities. I'm going to take my sight and my hearing away and see what I get. And we we used to when we used to go ghost hunting and stuff. Harry Borges was one of the guys in Gettysburg, and he was talking about well, at times when we're out here, he said, I just get this tendonitis. And I said, you do? And he said, yes. I said, next time you get the tendonitis, put your finger in your ear. If you still hear it, it's tendonitis. If you don't, it's your hearing around you. And then he started listening more closely. And it's like, okay, you know, because I said, when you do that, don't you get EVPs at that point? Yeah. Said, okay. You know, I said, you're trying to tune out what's coming in, not listen to it. Not to be, you know, this spiritual. No, I'm just telling you scientifically, if you do these things, test test what's going on and see what you hear, feel, or see. Because sometimes if you are hearing something and you hear this scratchy whatever, then it's because we're moving faster. So you're hearing, you know,
Mhm.
you just hear a brief, small part of it. So it's much easier to follow the rules that we have built for mankind
Mhm.
and miss out on so many things. You know, I can guarantee there's no reason in the world that I should be able to build devices and put things together. I can think it, and then I can do it, and it's been that easy as growing up. I there was that. I mean, we grew up a poor kid in Arkansas, not you know, and yet all of this. Why? You know, I don't know. Maybe it's because of my great grandmother or one of my uncles that anything I wanted to build, well, let's do this. You know, and so there were no limits put on it.
That's very similar to some of the things you hear about, like Da Vinci and Tesla. They would just have these things put into their head of, this is what you got to build, and they'd know every nut, bolt, everything that needed to be installed and how, and it was like something had put it there. So
Yeah, and I mean, I just accepted that there's kind of a blessing, and it's like, okay, you know, it's um, it's unusual, and I mean, it kind of uh, I I like the idea of what I get to do, but I really wish other people could sense or feel that sometimes, because I can sense people's attitude and things like that. It's just the energy, and you can feel that fuzzy, out of sorts energy. You know,
Mm.
like you scared a cat. Fur pops off everywhere, and they're no, that's we have the ability to have more control of our lives than we realize. And we have the ability to interact with other things and stuff. You got pets?
Mm-mm.
No?
I have
Okay.
fish. That's it.
Well, they don't come in and tell you they want treats. I mean,
That's
well,
right.
they might come up
They
to
do. They do.
pop their mouth, and it's like, okay. And then you come in the next day, they do the same thing. And then it's like, the idiot's deaf today. My cats they'll tell me 4 or 5 times they want treats. They'll get up on the counter. They're Maine Coons. They're very big cats. They'll show me what they want. And then I'll mess with them, knowing that they want treats. So we're sometimes trained by our pets, but we don't listen very well. I mean, if you did that with a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever type thing, that wouldn't last very long. Like, I'm just going to mess with you. I'm not going to pay attention. I mean, but no, everything that we've done, even like building that device that I was talking about, and then you guys had already talked about it. It'd be simplistic to build, and it doesn't seem like that. Oh shoot, I forgot what it's called, but the LEDs that light up when something gets close to it, or energy gets close to it. And if you really wanted to test some theories, you could kind of take mirrored plexiglass, the Lexan, put it on the bottom, put it on the sides, and then when something comes in, fold up a side and see if the spirit box really does work. Because, if you put something in a mirrored box, it's supposed to hold the spirit. Now, I mean, I've seen it on some of these shows, and it's like, well, I mean, if it can move through solid anything, then what has the mirror got to do? I mean, I don't see that would be confusing, but it'd be a way to test the theory. Because if you had it in there and it's in there, and then you close it up, if it's still in there, and you can see, like have a camera in there, see how long you can hold it there. I mean, might be fun to do. And it might be something that aggravate the fool out of something too.
Like a ghost trap. Yeah. So let's talk about this device, because again, we've touched on this a little. We talked about it before the show. I had this idea. I was talking to at this point a couple months ago, Austin Maynard was on my show, and me and Austin Maynard had this discussion about, if you could, basically we want to be able to, for our limited perspective of the universe, take a picture of something in another dimension, another reality thing. And how would you do that? And if you could take this 3-dimensional cube of, like, say, EMF meters, and every 6 inches or so, you'd have another EMF bar, very similar to like the tripwires that you can get. And whatever passed into this box would light up the EMF meters or the tripwire devices and give you a 3-dimensional picture of the electromagnetic field that had crossed into this box. So obviously we're kind of on the same page here, that you would try and use the EMF field to do this, or is there another way of measuring that you could come up with?
Well, I mean, if you put the lights in, and so when it comes in, it would give it a dimension, and it'd give it a form. Now, then this would be a good place to test the theory. Does it draw energy from, because the LEDs are low voltage, and it seems, that if something's going to die, it's not high voltage, it's low voltage. It's like batteries, cameras, things like that. So it's that interaction. So that would mean it would be, and then you could also test it with, if it went inside this and it dissipated, then you could put something inside there that has batteries and see that if it would gain energy when it had that. So you could test the theory of okay, is this an alternating current with low voltage, or is it DC voltage that it's interacting with? You know, alternating may not work as well, but I mean, it works when something moves across that field. Like remember you used to use the old doorbell that monitor that you'd walk in front of, and it buzzed when something went in front of it, when energy moved in front of it. So you could test it, but see that just like a flashlight, touch the flashlight and make it come on. Okay, well, good, but it's working with something that's a DC current. Define what range it works in, and then you might develop what would occur and say, okay, let's repeat this. Let's test it in different areas. After you've done it, and say, well, you know what? The AC alternating current is not working as well as the DC current. And if the DC current's working as well, then you use that to bolster your experiments. Make the experiment grow, and then see what you've got. It may be as simple as that, but it's one step at a time. And I mean, you're taking both sides of the spectrum, AC, DC, see what you've got, and just measure it out and see if it's maybe pulsating energy. Because if the camera works and it goes on and then off and everything, then is it interacting with it when it's in the off state, or if it's in the on state, when it's flowing or when it's not flowing? See, so do you have to have something that creates a loop so that it can be part of it, or can it be something that's just stationary? But I've had the same thing. Had the camera batteries separate. This one goes out, take the next one in, put it in, and it's almost drained. So to me, it's kind of like, I'm really screwing up an experiment here by telling you that, though. But test it both ways. If it can be, heck, well, if it does it that way, what about a car battery? In that case, what's something else that you can do? A gel cell that has high cranking amps, something that allows it to energize and see what's going on. I mean, everything's an experiment, and experiments are fun because you can really fail miserably, but you learned, or you can hit on something and say, okay, from here we build this. Going forward, we do this, and we make these adjustments. I personally would like to blow away the theory of, well, it comes through this door. We don't know that. It could come because dimensionally, if we have north, south, east, and west, and we have to be feet planted on the ground, and we walk in, there are no limits to the area that it could come in. It can come in sideways, or come over here and stand by me. Okay, well, what is stand when something has a dimensional, sees in multiple dimensions further than we see? Well, as far as it is, well, I'm surrounding you. Is that good enough? And it's so these are all the fun things. These are the things that I enjoyed doing when we were doing the ghost hunting. It's like, okay, well, let's try this. Let's look at this. Let's look at this application. What does this do, and what can we tell from this? Now, I have used devices that put out a lot of energy that would just squelch a ghost hunt. It just, everything's gone. Nothing occur. Take it away, and then you start getting these energy forms. Is it stuck in a magnetic field at that particular area and it's bound in a certain range? Then you can test that. I mean, does it have to be where it's at, or can it follow you home? I mean, I don't know, but we get so excited when something happens that we forget that, wait a minute, what did I learn from this? I mean, makes a good TV show, but gee, come on. What did you learn, and how can you repeat it? Or can you? If you can't, then we missed something. There's something else that needs to be done in here. That's the fun of, well, this can't be done. That's how I got in the federal government. The assistant director of GSA called me to her office and she said, Michael, I'm going to have you at a GS-15 in less than a year. I'm going to give you projects that are impossible. I said, okay. She said, you're not going to ask why? I said, no, she said, because if you do anything, you succeeded and you become a focal point. So impossible at that point took on a whole new meaning to me. I was like, well, wait a minute. Impossible is just kind of a word, because if I did something, it's further than anybody else got. So it changed my aspect of how things work around myself or others and things like that. It would be kind of unique if the mesh of the people that are in your group, if they have such an emotional roller coaster that they're feeding off of each other and creating that form. These are all things that we don't think about, but it's like, wait a minute, well, we got a new person here because they threw it off. No, wait a minute. What were the dynamics of this whole thing? I'm getting into my field, which is just like research and find it and then repeat it. Once you can repeat it, then you can monitor it, interact with it, and get to know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I feel like that when people go to these different locations, the hot spots, the places that everybody goes to ghost hunt, and they go out there and they have a good time. And if that's what you're there for, that's great. And you're not learning anything, though. Being that, we have certain locations that we can go to repeatedly and go back and go back and go back. And when you do that, you have that ability to test theories, to test interactions and see, debunk certain things and say, okay, well, this is just, certain things happen, like the air conditioner kicks in or something, and you finally rule that out after times, or you start to be able to build that ability to understand and interact and test theories. And I think that if more people that, wanted to say that they're paranormal researchers would do that and focus on one location and figure that out, that we'd be a lot farther with this world. Science, you've just talked about this whole past hour here, that even if you have this metaphysical, spiritual out there, you can still use science to understand it, because it's still the same thing. It's all energy. Whether you're a spirit or a physical manifestation, you're still all made of the same thing. And science can still take a grasp on the things that we don't understand and put that into a term that we can start to understand.
Well, and even as much as for $189, you can get a weather station. Take it with you. And when you're getting a lot of activity, see what the barometric pressure is, what the humidity is, what is there thunderstorms in the area, because you have a lot of high energy electricity in the clouds and stuff that interact with the ground, because that is where the electricity comes from, where the lightning comes from, not from the cloud down. It interacts with the earth, and it's basically a static shock. And then develop, well, if we really want to get a lot of interaction, we need to come when it's this temperature, this rate, this time. That becomes more of a, here, we built this process, and you may not have it wherever you're working, wherever somebody else is going, or if they've gone to like 500 places and, well, I get one thing here or one thing there. Like you're saying, go to that one place and repeat it, and then share information with each other and say, okay, now you bring your stuff here and I'm going to go there, and let's see if we use the same settings in the same format and we get the same results. That is kind of what I was always talking about to Carla is, I would be good as the technical, let's do this, all the fun stuff. That's great. But can you repeat it? Can this occur again? And once you get to the point that then can you enhance that ability by giving it more power to draw from, if that's what it's doing, so that it can recognize that you're not there just, okay, I've got recorders and I got cameras and stuff. And well, go over and step out of this, or, walk through here. Let me feel you this. No, interact and see if it is a real entity or if it is energy that is an emotional energy that's coming from the group. At that point, you take one person out and say, okay, now everybody else go try this, and back and forth and see if it shifts. You may have somebody that has that's basically a lightning rod, and they don't know it.
How much of this stuff do you think, you go to a location, say for instance, and you're looking for a spirit of a person, and your equipment's going off, your EMFs, your REMs, all that stuff are going off. Do you think that instead of being an entity or a spirit, that this is just natural energy that's manifesting in that area, that, because of those thunderstorms or whatever, and it's not an intelligent form, but just manifestations of the energy in the environment?
Well, yes and no, because you have living things. Most people go to a cemetery, and I can prove that there's reincarnation. It's not the way that people think, but it's a reincarnation. If I die and have my ashes spread, something is going to absorb that, and that's going to be up through the food chain, because it just needs a few of the particles that were me to enhance and give information, encoded information, because we're sharing these billions and trillions of molecules, and you and I are breathing the same space. I get some of you in me, because if I can interact with you, there's that flow, and I may get a connection. Someone says, oh, I've connected with this person. Well, yeah, you kind of shared some of the particles that were charged by you back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So are we looking at this? It's kind of like being a psychologist and stuff. Well, I'm going to work you through this. Well, by the time that you've been through 5 or 6 sessions, that person inside or out, and you know what they're going to say and what they're going to do. You don't know it because of them sharing their emotional state with you. You know it because you've shared that personal part of them. You learn from the things that you touch, smell, see. Manifestation. A friend of mine just brought. I'm sorry. I'm going to jump a little bit.
Okay.
Back around Christmas, we had gone to a friend of mine's name is Liz Denton. She's in Crossville, Tennessee, and she's an author. She's a very brilliant lady. And she said, well, how does manifestation work? How does getting things to occur work? And I said, I can prove it to you. And I said, close your eyes. And she said, okay. I said, think back to Christmas time around your house. What do you smell right now? And she said, I smell cookies and then turkey, and then hear the laughter. I smell coffee, all this. I said, can you taste that right now? She said, yes. I said, you have just manifested a memory out of a thought of something that you had in a previous. Now, you couldn't manifest something that you didn't smell, feel, or taste at that time, but to that. She says, it's that easy. I said, absolutely. She said, and you do this all the time? I said, absolutely not. I forget. But it is that easy, because it's like, well, I'm going to do this on my own. Well, wait a minute. What do I want to occur, and how do I want it to occur? And what is the outcome? What steps? It's not like it just instantaneously occurs. it has to take a process or a thought and something that you understand to get you from point A to point B. So if you understand where you're at and where you want to go, you can get there much easier than just saying, well, the universe owes me this, and so I'm gonna win the lottery. At some point you need to buy a ticket first. But if you didn't do that, you're never going to win, but you're still going to sit there and day after day say, I'm going to win the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take to do these specific things? What does it take for your knowledge of where you are and who you are and what you've learned to get you from point A to point B? I've started a second book, and it is going in entirely different directions than I thought it would. It was basically to build on the secondary level below everything I discussed in the first book, and not to be the first is a reference to tell you how I got from where I'm at and how I think through things. And then what I wanted to do is build it and go into the smaller forms. Well, then I started realizing I'm interacting with an environment, and the me as a person in an environment, like go to work, come home, eat, mow the yard, visit with friends, go see your parents or whatever, those things. I have a specific path that I've ingrained. And if I don't break something in that path that's stopping me from doing what I should do, I can't do that. But I'm held in an environment. But the environment changes when you talk to your mom on the phone or when you go see her. Which one is the most satisfying? When you're actually there, because you're there, you know what to expect, but you don't know what, when you get there, what you're going to talk about, what you're going to see, what you're going to hear, and things. That's the same thing. Knowing your surroundings and knowing where you are, and if you know where you are, you can get anywhere. But it's nice to know how you got where you're at, so you don't make some of these dumb mistakes again and again and again. I mean, I'm be 68 in October, so it's like I don't have a whole lot of chances left to redo the mistakes I've made. So I probably need to forget about those and just move on. Just remember the lesson and move on and build from here. We listen to and pigeonhole ourselves in the same areas that other people think we should be. And if you don't fit that pigeonhole, walk away from it or walk away from the person, because I don't have to prove myself to somebody else, because I know how I got where I'm at. I don't know where they're at. Live your life and enjoy it. And if you have to live your life and be driven by somebody else and somebody else's opinions, you're in the wrong place. That's why it's, I think that's what kind of drew Carla and I to ghost hunting, is because there's no set expectations. You don't really know what's going to happen. You don't understand it all, but you can start building processes and theories onto this, and you can start changing and doing more and more things. Bad part about it is a lot of places, like when we moved so much when Carla was in the Navy, you get started with somebody, and then the next thing you know, you're, well, okay, we're going to move. And, it's kind of hard to start over again and things and, start from where you were. But it's some amazing stuff. There's one place that we used to hunt down in Mexico. And now I would have stayed in the house because it didn't really bother me, but they wanted to prove. They said, no, we're not going to stay here. We're going to stay at the hunting lodge. I said, okay. We went in the house, unlocked it, went in, and there's a bedroom in there. And on the dresser, there was like a comb and a brush and all this stuff. He said, move those. And he said, nobody will be back. You keep the keys. It's okay. He said, they'll be back where they were when we come back tomorrow morning. It's like, oh, okay, sure. So I moved them and stuff. Came back the next morning. They were right back where they were supposed to be, And I said, well, you guys don't want to stay here? No, Like, no, we're not going to do that. It's like, well, I'll stay here. No, no. So um, that one. Now, can I explain it? No. I had the keys to the house. Now, could they have had another set of keys? Absolutely. But there was dust all on that dresser, and there was not a fingerprint on it. Because I picked it up by the bristles, and moved the stuff over here, and it was right back where it was supposed to be. So they should have moved some dust. So can I explain that? Absolutely not. Kind of unusual, yes. Would it have been a fun place to research? Yeah, that one would have been good. And I don't know what. And he said that the family lived and died there, and the lady that was there died of old age, and she was where she wanted to be, and they couldn't sell the house, couldn't get rid of it because it's a very old house there. But it's like no, nobody would come there and live there. So, I mean, take it for what it's worth. I mean, could they have been messing with me? Yeah, they could have been, but I mean, I knew where they were at that night because we were all in the same place, So, so it's not. It's let's see, expecting one thing but not knowing what the outcome will be, and I think that's what ghost hunting really is. Because you're not really hunting ghosts; you're looking for answers. Sometimes it's to find out if there's something other than this life, or if there's nothing after this life. That's a scary thought. Oh, man, if this is it, then what? But from the things that I've seen and the concept of how things pass from one point to the next, I think the energy that is you is ingrained in molecules and will always be there. So, scientifically, I can prove that. I can't prove the spirit, but that might be the point that where photons move in between everything in the universe to create that interaction and transfer knowledge instantaneously from place to place. Because if the entire universe is one big living organism, it's evolved and is evolving as we come, these little short lifespans come and go, but it's still evolving and changing. So that's one truth that you can say. This is a true statement, and I know that this occurs.
Absolutely. Wow. So again, your book is out, The God Algorithm Secrets Revealed. You can get that on Amazon. I believe it's in the show notes, or it's going to be in the show notes for this episode. For anybody that wants to get a link to it, you can get it on Amazon, though. Just look it up. You got another book you're working on right now, and so we can look forward to that in the future. Again, today's show was pre-recorded, so tell everybody, where can people get a hold of you if they have any questions? Do you have any other events coming up?
No, I just people will call and say, hey, would you like to do this? And it's like, sure. So I just appear wherever. I teach on the Shift Network some for like Cindy Dale and stuff. I teach quantum physics applications for some of her classes and things. But you can reach me on specx2002@gmail.com if you've got any questions or comments. And it's, if you say that back, it's special effects.
Uh-huh. Very good, man. Very good. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and hopefully everyone tunes in and listens here on this 4th of July weekend, and hopefully everybody's doing well. And I thank you so much for everything that you've worked on. And I mean, your whole resume. Go look at the show notes and read through that. There's so much that you've done and accomplished, and yeah, it's awesome. Very good. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, I've enjoyed it, Barnaby, and I still kind of giggle when I think about what your mom was doing to you on that the one at the church. Or yeah, it's like, yeah, no, I'm sure he's not, because you said something touched me, and she laughed,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the haunted, or the most haunted church in Chicago, or most haunted church in Illinois on our YouTube channel. It's the Haunted Cicero Church. And I was doing an Estes session, and my mom literally tells the spirits there to go walk around me. And at the same time, you see me react and go, "There's something behind me right now, and I feel like something touched me." And then she's like, "All right, now go walk in front of them." And then I'm like, "There's something in front of me," and I got headphones on and I got blinder on, and I'm listening to the spirit box and stuff, and it was a weird, very weird. And besides all that, going back to the tech side of this, you can literally watch the EMF of the tripwire interact with whatever's walking around me as well. So it's very, very convincing footage of what was going on. And I mean, you can't make that stuff up. You can't, there's so much levels to what was going on there. So
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool. And when Bobby was, he said, oh, "That's Barnaby's mom." I said, "Oh, okay." But I mean, it was. I know it's funny, but and everything, but you sensed what was going on,
mhm.
and now because you're sitting there, you're oblivious to everything,
Yes.
And I thought, now see, to me, that's the cool stuff about, as a group, you guys can pick at each other, but you still, if it was something that didn't feel right, I
Mhm.
can guarantee your mom would be the first one to say, "Don't you do this."
Oh yeah. Yeah. She yells at spirits all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. But I
and
mean,
and
and that's the things that are fun. You get out. Real quick, we were
mhm.
in Gettysburg, me, Carla, and a girl named Colleen that was with the ghost hunting group there. And we'd gone out to, let's see, golly, Little Round Top.
Mhm.
And I got an EVP. And I said, "Is there anybody out there?" And it said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay." So I said, "Well, I'm Mike. This is Carla. This is Colleen. Who are you?" And it came back and it said Mike. And I thought, okay. And then I said, "Well, how many of you are here?" And it came back on. It said 4. And I looked at them. I said, "Wait a minute." When I asked, "Who are you?" it answered that who basically, "Who am I?" Mike. And then it said 4. It, Carla, Colleen, and me. And I said, this is, it doesn't know that this information, this was like, it wasn't a repetitive thing. This one knew that, hey,
Mhm.
I'm part of this, here. Now that was kind of freaky, but it was fun. I mean, it's like, oh, okay. But you have to kind of think and put it in the perspective of, well, it's Mike too, and there's 4 of them out there. No, look at the surroundings and see, it considered itself as one of us. So kind of neat. It was fun, but we don't get that very often. But that one was really, I remember that. I just happened to think of that, just a second ago. But really enjoyed Barnaby, and you guys have a great 4th of July, and look forward to hearing from you guys.
Awesome. Definitely. Take care, man.
All right,
And
thank you.
we'll have to have you back, and let me know when your next book comes out, and we'll chat more about that.
That sounds good. Thank you, Barnaby.
All right, man.
Looking
You take
forward to
care.
it.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Again, today's show was pre-recorded, so if you're watching this live on the Untold Radio Network and we're ignoring your questions or comments, that's why. Sorry for that, but 4th of July, everyone's out doing their own thing, and my guest couldn't make it on live, so it worked out perfect for us. So this is pre-recorded back in April, and so I'm not sure who the guest is for next week here on the Paranormal Spectrum, and I'm actually not sure who the guest is for Monday on the Monsters on the Edge. So it'll be a surprise for you guys all, and we'll be having a great show, I guarantee it. So until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Take care.
You seem to know something I don't. What's going on?